faithfully delivering value, interpreting great books from around the world. Hello, this is Sally's Book Talk. In the previous episode of God's Tombs and Scholars, we traced the steps of archaeologists, uncovering the discovery of ancient Greek and Roman ruins and their roots, going back to the Minoan civilization from about 5,000 years ago. In this episode, we turn our gaze beyond Europe. First, let's look at the ancient Egyptian civilization, south of Europe, its origins and development. Then, we'll learn about the Mesopotamian civilization, east of Europe. Finally, we'll cross the Atlantic to explore the mysterious civilizations of the Americas. Just like the previous episode, similarly, we'll use the explorations of archaeologists as a clue to lead you into these civilizations. All right, now let's turn our gaze to the south of Europe. Ancient Egyptian civilization. For a long time, Europeans didn't know much about Egypt's early history, and this didn't change until the late 18th century. The change came with Napoleon's expedition to Egypt in May 1798. Napoleon led his army across the Mediterranean, landed in Egypt, trying to remove British influence to prevent France from being attacked from both sides. This expedition ended in failure. However, the scholars who accompanied them collected a large number of artifacts, including sculptures, steles, papyrus, and more. This sparked an Egyptomania in France and throughout Europe, with unprecedented curiosity about ancient Egyptian civilization. The most fascinating were two great mysteries, the mystery of hieroglyphs and the mystery of Pharaoh's tombs. First, let's talk about the first mystery, the mystery of hieroglyphs. The one who unraveled it was the French archaeologist and linguist, Jean-François Champollion. Born in 1790 in the small town of Figeac, France. At the age of 10, he followed Napoleon's expedition to Egypt through newspapers. During that time, Champollion was fascinated by the mystery of ancient Egypt and resolved to study it, undertaking long preparations for this. At age 11, Champollion entered the Grenoble Academy, studying ancient Greek, Latin, Old Syriac, and more, to comprehensively understand ancient Egypt through various ancient texts. He also studied Chinese because it was said that hieroglyphs and Chinese characters are related. At the same time, Champollion closely followed archaeological progress, absorbing it voraciously. About all new knowledge of ancient Egypt in 1807, that is, Champollion, at the age of 17, he wrote the book Egypt of the Pharaohs, introducing ancient Egypt during the pharaonic rule. Champollion also read the introduction of this book in front of all the teachers at the Grenoble Academy, causing a sensation throughout the school. The principal immediately announced the appointment of Champollion as a professor at the academy. Inspired by this, Champollion decided to decipher the Rosetta Stone, ANDDS. This stone stela was discovered by French forces in the Egyptian port city of Rosetta. Made of basalt, it bears 3 inscriptions in 3 columns. The first in ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs, the second in Demotic script used by common people, and the third in easily recognizable Greek. Thus, the meaning of the inscriptions was quickly deciphered. The Rosetta Stone was created by priests of the Ptolemaic dynasty to commemorate the first anniversary of Ptolemy V's coronation, affirming royal legitimacy and extolling his achievements. The Greek inscription further states that although written in 3 scripts, all columns contain identical content. So theoretically, archaeologists could simply translate the hieroglyphs using the Greek text to solve the mystery, right? Easier said than done. The reality proved far more challenging. Archaeologists struggled for years with minimal progress. Why was this so? Because Greek is alphabetic while hieroglyphs are logographic, fundamentally different in both script and grammar. Direct translation was essentially impossible. Initially stumped, Champollion had a breakthrough realization. The stele honored Ptolemy V. The name appeared repeatedly in the Greek text. Similarly, it must appear multiple times in hieroglyphs, making the king's name the key. Indeed, Champollion identified several closely matching symbols. After thorough study, he confirmed these represented royal names, but this alone couldn't crack the script. He abandoned piecemeal approaches for holistic understanding. He cross-referenced the Rosetta Stone with other Egyptian inscriptions. Here, Champollion's knowledge of Coptic proved crucial. Evolved from hieroglyphs and still in use, Coptic served as a living dictionary of ancient Egyptian. Through this approach, Champollion deciphered hieroglyphs, revolutionizing Egyptian archaeology. Henceforth, scholars could reconstruct dynastic chronologies using hieroglyphic records. The findings reveal that ancient Egyptian history is far longer than previously imagined. Early, around 3010 BC, over 5,000 years ago, ancient Egypt saw its first dynasty emerge. Until the fall of the Ptolemaic dynasty in 30 BC, native Egyptians and foreign invaders established a total of 33 dynasties. Starting around the Third Dynasty, Egyptians began constructing pharaohs' tombs. Among these, a Giza pyramid complex attracts the most global attention. Giza is an elevated area along the Lower Nile, about 10 kilometers from Cairo, featuring 3 pyramids, the tallest standing 40 stories high, magnificently known as the Great Pyramid. The other 2 pyramids are smaller but equally spectacular, with the famous Sphinx situated among them. So, who do these pyramids belong to? What's their relationship to each other? And why did pharaohs build pyramids in the first place? This leads us to ancient Egypt's second great mystery. The mystery of pharaohs' tombs was unraveled by British archaeologist Flinders Petrie, whose life was truly legendary. Born in Charlton, England in 1853, poor health kept him from formal schooling, but he received excellent homeschooling. His father, a geologist with archaeological interests, taught him surveying skills that laid the foundation for Petrie's future career. His mother was a linguistic genius. Under her tutelage, Petrie spoke French, Latin, Greek, and Hebrew by age 8, a true prodigy. So how did he become fascinated with ancient Egypt? Turns out, Petrie's father befriended Piazzi Smith of the Royal Observatory of Scotland, an astronomer and Egyptologist particularly enamored with the Great Pyramid, inspiring Petrie's own passion. In 1880, 27-year-old Petrie arrived in Giza to begin his survey. One night, he found the Great Pyramid's entrance, crawled inside, and emerged late, sweaty, and bloodshot-eyed. What had he been doing? He was examining and measuring the internal structure, discovering its orderly layout. Precisely designed chambers for pharaohs, queens, and resting rooms, connected by corridors. Above the most important pharaoh's burial chamber, 5 layers of granite were stacked with sufficient spacing to effectively distribute the pyramid's weight. This weight-relieving design was already ingenious. Even more exciting for Petrie was discovering an inscription mentioning Khufu's name, proving the Great Pyramid belonged to the second pharaoh of Egypt's 4th dynasty, hence named the Pyramid of Khufu. The owners of the other 2 pyramids soon emerged, Khufu's son Khafre and grandson Menkaure, meaning the Giza pyramids were successively built by these 3 generations. According to historian Herodotus, during Khufu's reign, Egypt was powerful, conquering modern-day Libya to the west and campaigning in the Sinai Peninsula to the east. This enabled pharaohs to concentrate resources for pyramid construction. Petrie calculated Khufu's pyramid used 2.3 million stone blocks, standing over 136 meters tall, equivalent to a modern 40-story building. Petrie calculated before the Eiffel Tower, it was the world's tallest structure. Completing such colossal projects in antiquity required staggering labor forces. Estimates suggest Khufu drove hundreds of thousands of slaves for over 20 years, with many perishing from illness or exhaustion. 3 generations of pyramid building strained national finances to near bankruptcy. Within years after Menkaure's death, the 4th dynasty collapsed due to resources exhausted by pyramid construction. Why would pharaohs risk their kingdom for pyramids? To understand, Petrie studied ancient Egyptian social customs and beliefs. He concluded pyramid building was driven by religious faith. Ancient Egyptians believed in soul immortality. death merely transitioned to another existence. In this afterlife concept, they retained all earthly possessions: food, homes, jewels, slaves. Thus, pharaohs filled pyramids with all worldly luxuries, often more extravagantly. Pyramids alone weren't enough. Bodies were mummified to prevent decay, anchoring the soul eternally to its physical form. To be safe, each pharaoh's mummy was guarded by specialized priests who prayed for them. Petri's pyramid measurements remain remarkably precise to this day. By revealing Pharaoh's true motives for pyramid building, he solved a major Egyptological puzzle and advanced research significantly. After Petri, archaeologists deepened pyramid excavations and studies. However, tomb raiders throughout history left few of the 110 pyramids well preserved, with intact pharaoh mummies being exceptionally rare. In this context, Petri's assistant Howard Carter made extraordinary contributions. Over 20 years younger than Petrie, Carter arrived in Egypt in 1890 as his assistant. When Petrie returned to England, Carter inherited his legacy. Carter stayed in Egypt over 20 years, becoming a defining figure in Egyptian archaeology. His crowning achievement was discovering a perfectly preserved pharaoh's tomb. In autumn 1917, Carter explored Luxor on the Nile's west bank, known as the Valley of the Kings for its concentration of royal tombs. After a century of archaeologists and looters combing the valley, people believed no intact tombs remained. Undeterred, Carter chose a triangular area between three tombs and dug relentlessly. Driven purely by instinct and determination, after 5 exhausting years digging, by 1922, Carter had nearly lost hope. On November 3rd, he began dismantling workmen's huts to depart. Next morning, he accidentally discovered stone steps beneath the hut. Clearing debris revealed the tomb entrance. Descending those steps, Carter discovered an untouched tomb, Tutankhamun's tomb. Tutankhamun ruled Egypt's 18th dynasty approximately 300 years ago. He ascended at 8, died at 18 after just 10 years of rule, nearly forgotten by history. Yet, his tomb overflowed with extravagant treasures. Carter cataloged over 5,000 artifacts.
Crucially, this tomb had never been looted.
Thus, Carter easily found Tutankhamun's mummy in the burial chamber. As the valley's only unlooted mummy, it proved invaluable for studying Egyptian mummification techniques and religious beliefs. Thus, the announcement caused an immediate sensation, with tourists flooding into Tutankhamun's tomb. Fuck what? In just the first quarter of 1926, 12,300 visitors came specifically to see it, with another 270 groups touring the mummy examination laboratory. Media outlets competed fiercely to cover this phenomenon. On March 2, 1939, Carter passed away at his London home at age 65.
With Carter's departure, my account of Egyptian archaeology concludes. To summarize, Napoleon's 1799 Egyptian expedition brought back extensive materials, sparking Egyptomania.
French archaeologist Champollion spent 17 years deciphering the Rosetta Stone's hieroglyphs, enabling dynastic chronologies and unprecedented understanding. After this, British archaeologist Petrie solved the pyramid mystery. His assistant Carter discovered the only intact pharaonic tomb, Tutankhamun, and its mummy, providing invaluable research materials. All right, we've covered ancient Egypt south of Europe. Now we turn eastward to Mesopotamia's ancient civilizations. The two rivers refer to the Euphrates and Tigris, both originating in modern Turkey, flowing parallel through the Middle East into the Persian Gulf. Their floodplain is broadly called Mesopotamia, with Syria and Iraq's fertile plain between them, contrasting sharply with surrounding deserts. Thus, Mesopotamia conventionally denotes this specific region. Now I'll discuss Mesopotamia's two greatest ancient civilizations. How archaeologists discovered the Assyrian and Babylonian civilizations. First, Assyria's discovery. The Bible contains numerous passages describing the Assyrian Empire as Israel's greatest enemy. In 722 BC, the Assyrian Empire captured northern Israel's capital. This is explicitly recorded in the Old Testament as God using Assyria to punish the pleasure-seeking Jewish people. This tragic memory made Assyria's capital Nineveh symbolize depravity and terror for Europeans. But did Nineveh actually exist? If it exists, where could it be? This puzzle persisted until Italian archaeologist Paul-Émile Botta emerged. Born in France in 1803, his father was a renowned historian. Influenced by his family, Botta developed early interests in history and archaeology, later traveling through Egypt and Italy visiting excavation sites. However, this remained an amateur pursuit. His formal career was diplomacy. In 1840, he was posted to the French consulate in Mosul, located on the upper Tigris River with sweltering climate. At sunset, Botta would ride horseback into the countryside seeking breezes. In the outskirts, he observed peculiar mounds. With flat tops and steep sides, these unnatural formations sparked Botta's curiosity. Could secrets lie buried beneath? Impatient by nature, Botta selected a mound and dug, finding nothing. His stubbornness ignited, driving him to continue. A year passed with surrounding mounds excavated, yet no treasures found. Just as Botta despaired, a local informed him about a site over 10 kilometers away. A village called Khorsabad had countless inscribed bricks used for building houses and ovens, suggesting more treasures underground. Skeptical but curious, Botta sent an assistant to investigate. A week later, the report confirmed villagers' claims. They excavated a mound, quickly uncovering a wall with bizarre carvings. Hearing this, Botta galloped to Khorsabad. What he saw stunned him. Reliefs covered with murals depicting bearded warriors, winged beasts, and other wonders. These images were completely alien to Europeans, unseen elsewhere. Botta realized this wall held profound significance. So Botta summoned all personnel, unearthing wall after wall through concentrated excavation. Simultaneously, Botta notified the French government. The French government mobilized full support upon receiving news. From 1843 to 1846, Botta excavated 3 years, revealing an entire palace. This palace contained 70-plus rooms filled with sculptures, its 3-kilometer walls engraved with inscriptions and reliefs depicting royal life. After analyzing hunting and battle scenes, Botta concluded this was the palace of the Assyrian Empire, and its location was Nineveh, as mentioned in the Bible. This discovery shocked Europe, making people believe the Bible stories had real historical roots. Meanwhile, another young man's ambitions were ignited. His name was Austin Henry Layard. Born in 1817 in Paris to mixed British-French heritage, he later took British citizenship. From childhood, he dreamed of Mesopotamia, longing for Baghdad, Damascus, and Persia. In 1839, Layard was sent to work at the British Embassy in Constantinople, using spare time for archaeological surveys in Mesopotamia. At Nimrud, about 30 kilometers from Mosul, Layard also found oddly shaped mounds, but he lacked funding and technical means to excavate. This let Botta take the lead.
When news of Botta's success came, Layard was thrilled and felt he still had a chance.
He reasoned the Assyrian Empire had more than one capital, and beneath Nimrod's mounds, palaces might be buried. So Layard persuaded the British ambassador, getting permission and funding. He returned to Nimrud to start digging. Layard had great luck. He began in early November 1845, and by mid-month found 2 Assyrian palaces. Yep, 2? More than what Botta uncovered. Layard was right. Nimrud was also an Assyrian capital, founded in the 13th century BC, lasting over 600 years until the capital moved to Nineveh, and it declined. This way, Layard pushed Assyrian history back over 3,000 years. Even more valuable, archaeologists excavated tons of artifacts from Nimrud. Temples, armories, giant sculptures, and thousands of ivory carvings, outdoing Nineveh in quantity and worth. That's odd. Why did Nimrud, abandoned earlier than Nineveh, have more and better preserved relics? The reason is, Nimrud was voluntarily abandoned by the Assyrians without destruction. Nineveh, though, was destroyed. In 612 BC, Assyria's old enemies, Medes, Persians, and Neo-Babylonians, formed an alliance and captured Nineveh. They plundered Nineveh madly, leaving it wrecked, completely abandoned, and slowly buried in dust.
That's why Botta's findings couldn't match Layard's. and Layard's incredible luck just kept rolling.
He decided to revisit the sites where Bata had excavated. As mentioned earlier, Bata dug fruitlessly near Mosul for a year before relocating to discover Nineveh, so work near Mosul naturally halted. But Layard, brimming with confidence, refused to accept defeat and believed he could succeed where Bata failed. In autumn 1849, Layard began excavating near Mosul and remarkably uncovered a massive complex including palaces, temples, plazas, and streets. Research confirmed this belonged to the Assyrian Empire's most formidable ruler, Sennacherib's residence. He became Assyrian emperor in 704 BC and ruled over 20 years. During his reign, Assyria fiercely battled Babylon, ancient Judah, and others, frequently prevailing. Sennacherib's military brilliance and brutality profoundly impacted other civilizations. In 681 BC, Sennacherib was assassinated. Layard's discovery proved Bata had only found part of Nineveh. In reality, Nineveh was a massive city, stretching from Khorsabad village to Mosul's outskirts, with 12-kilometer perimeter walls featuring 15 gates and a 42-meter-wide moat. And inside stood 3 palace groups, 2 temple complexes, plus zoos, botanical gardens, and armories. Despite severe damage, these ruins remained awe-inspiring. But the most significant find was cuneiform writing. Layard's team unearthed a library housing 30,000 clay tablets covered in cuneiform, miraculous in war-ravaged Nineveh. Previously, archaeologists found limited cuneiform on stelas, pottery, and tablets, making decipherment difficult. These 30,000 tablets were archaeological manna from heaven. British archaeologist Henry Rawlinson was especially thrilled. Like Bata and Layard, Rawlinson was also a diplomat, having served as British consul general in Baghdad. Using his diplomatic access, Rawlinson immediately studied the tablets, though progress was slow since cuneiform was incredibly difficult, like Celestial script. Later, Rawlinson noticed that a linguist named Grotefend had deciphered ancient Persian. Since ancient Persian evolved from cuneiform, Rawlinson first learned ancient Persian. After mastering it, he compared it with cuneiform, giving him the key to successfully decipher cuneiform. Deciphering cuneiform helped archaeologists study the Assyrian Empire more deeply. It also provided a key to understanding pre-Assyrian history. By interpreting cuneiform alongside unearthed artifacts, archaeologists finally mapped out Assyrian civilization's historical context. Around 3000 BC, Assyrian civilization emerged along the Middle Tigris. After over 2,000 years of development, the Assyrian Empire formed, dominating Mesopotamia during its peak until 612 BC, when Babylonian forces captured Nineveh, ending Assyria. So what about Babylon, which destroyed Assyria? Next, we'll explore Babylonian civilization's story. Enter German archaeologist Robert Koldewey. Born in 1855, he studied archaeology, architecture, and art history in university. After graduation, he first excavated in Greece before moving to Mesopotamia. In March 1899, Koldewey arrived at ancient Babylon's legendary ruins, about 90 kilometers south of Baghdad. At 45, his extensive archaeological experience made him confident. Initially, excavations progressed smoothly. Within weeks, they uncovered massive city walls. The walls were covered with reliefs of lions, boars, antelopes, and more. This thrilled Koldewey immensely, making him anticipate imminent success. But progress grew increasingly difficult. Koldewey led over 200 workers through 15 grueling years of excavation. Ancient Babylon's core was buried deep. Later measurements showed 24 meters of overlying soil, requiring massive effort just to clear. Koldewey's persistence paid off. The unearthed Babylon surpassed Nineveh in scale, with over 600 defensive towers, streets, palaces, and towering temples. The most sensational discovery was the Tower of Babel ruins. According to the Bible, Nebuchadnezzar II, ruler of Babylon, undertook grandiose projects including the sky-piercing Tower of Babel. But since the tower was destroyed with no proof left, historians were skeptical. Koldewey's discovery shattered this prejudice.
He found a platform over 91 meters wide.
Inscriptions on the base confirmed this was the foundation of the Tower of Babel. According to the inscriptions, the tower stood 7 stories high, about 90 meters, shaped like a trapezoid, built with 85 million bricks. Now the evidence was undeniable. The Tower of Babel truly existed. The inscriptions also revealed more secrets. Over 5,000 years ago, during ancient Babylon's era, people constructed the original tower. This shows ancient Babylonians mastered advanced architecture while achieving greatness in mathematics and astronomy. The tower was later destroyed in war until Nebuchadnezzar II of Neo-Babylon initiated its reconstruction. The biblical Tower of Babel was his masterpiece. Studying its inscriptions and Babylon's ruins made archaeologists realize this civilization's profound antiquity. Here's the historical timeline. Around 5 millennia ago, Babylonians rose and established the Old Babylonian Kingdom. Its 6th ruler, Hammurabi, unified Mesopotamia, enacted the famous Code of Hammurabi, and led the kingdom to its zenith. Later, the Hittite Empire invaded from Anatolia, ending Old Babylon. Soon after, Assyrian civilization emerged, expelling the Hittites. From 935 BC, Assyria dominated Mesopotamia, but Babylonians rebelled, founding Neo-Babylon in 626 BC and toppling Assyria within decades. Yet Babylon's triumph lasted barely 60 to 70 years. As Persia rose from the west, Neo-Babylon was conquered. Afterward, Mesopotamia fell to external powers: Persia, Macedon, Ottoman, never again spawning a native empire.
With this, our exploration of Mesopotamian civilization concludes.
From earlier episodes, we've covered ancient Greek, Roman, Egyptian, and Mesopotamian civilizations. Interestingly, they all encircled the Mediterranean. Thus, scholars collectively call them the Mediterranean Ring civilizations, all uncovered by archaeologists. But now we need to shift our perspective. First, we'll travel west from the Mediterranean, crossing the Atlantic, to examine the civilizations of the Americas. Second, this time our protagonists aren't archaeologists, but explorers. We'll focus on 2 explorers, Cortez and Stevens, to introduce how the ancient Aztec civilization and Maya civilization entered modern awareness. First up, Spanish explorer Hernán Cortés. In 1512, Cortés participated in Spain's conquest of Cuba. During this, he heard about an Aztec empire in Mexico, sparking his desire to explore. The Aztec Empire unified the Mexican plateau in the 15th century, becoming Mesoamerica's strongest power. The Spaniards' arrival ended the Aztecs' golden age. In February 1529, Cortés landed on Mexico's east coast and marched toward Tenochtitlan, the Aztec capital. With superior weapons and political cunning, Cortés's near 1,000 soldiers defeated the Aztec army of 100,000. They captured the emperor, stormed the palace, plundering mountains of gold, silver, artifacts, and ingots. Their looted treasures were valued at $6.03 in the 19th century, surpassing any European monarch's wealth. Archaeologically, Cortés's discovery caused far more damage than benefit. Later archaeologists found Aztecs achieved greatness in astronomy, medicine, and architecture, rivaling ancient Egypt. Sadly, this civilization, plundered and destroyed by Spanish colonists, is beyond reconstruction. The Aztecs migrated to the Mexican plateau in the 11th century. Strangely, archaeologists found structures and carvings at Aztec sites dating back millennia, suggesting an older, pre-Aztec civilization. What was it? This leads to Stevens' discovery of Maya civilization. John Lloyd Stevens, born 1803 in the U.S., trained as a lawyer but loved history and travel. He explored Egypt and Mesopotamia, publishing 2 travel books. Quote, paper. In 1839, Stevens entered Central America. In the Copon River Basin jungle, he glimpsed a towering wall. Who builds walls in untouched forests? Experience told him this was ancient ruins. So he and his companions hacked through the jungle toward the high wall. And along the way, Stevens discovered 14 stone stelae carved with reliefs, strengthening his conviction. Deep in the jungle, Stevens finally uncovered a great city. Yes, this was a Mayan civilization site. Stephen's discovery ignited archaeologists' passion, leading to many more Mayan ruins being uncovered from southeastern Mexico through Guatemala and Honduras to Peru. After decades of research across Central and South America, archaeologists gradually unraveled the mysteries of Mayan civilization. One, archaeology shows Mayan civilization formed around 1500 BC, approximately 35,000 years ago. By then, the Maya had invented writing and could construct large monuments and buildings. By the 4th century, Mayan civilization peaked, achieving greatness in architecture, religion, astronomy, and mathematics. The famous Mayan calendar emerged during this period. After the 9th century, Mayan civilization declined, gradually replaced by the Aztec civilization in central Mexico. Meanwhile, Peru's Inca civilization rose as many Mayan cities were abandoned and reclaimed by jungle. Later civilizations inherited much Mayan knowledge, explaining why Aztec sites contain numerous Mayan artifacts. This shows American civilizations like Greco-Roman, Egyptian, and Mesopotamian possessed historical continuity. Had European colonizers not forcibly interrupted their development, American civilizations would have evolved along their own unique paths. This concludes the book's main content. In summary, modern understanding of ancient civilizations is inseparable from archaeologists' efforts and archaeology's development. Beginning with 18th century Greco-Roman excavations, archaeologists progressively studied Egyptian and Mesopotamian sites, then systematically documented European colonized American civilizations. Without these dirt-digging archaeologists, buried civilizations like Babylon and Maya might still remain unknown. Human understanding of diverse civilizations would be far less profound today. How amazing! That concludes the next episode of God's Tombs and Scholars. Reading notes are below the audio. See you tomorrow.